So, will the minute taker please call roll?
Alderman Shockey.
Here.
Alderman Winger. Here. Alderman Eugene Wesley. Alderman Cadella.
Here.
Alderman Police.
Here.
Alderman Coles.
Here.
Alderman Roy Wesley. Roy West.
Yes, here.
Alderman Luetide.
Here.
Okay, I declare a quorum is present. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the August 27th meeting. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right. And first case to discuss this evening, report and recommendation on case number 09-V3, Wooddale Bowl, located at 155 West Irving Park Road. This is a request for a front yard variation. Let me give a brief synopsis of this project, and perhaps Mr. Clicker can either add to what I say or correct me if something in here is incorrect. This property is located in the B4 zoning district, where the front yard required setback is either 0 feet or the edge of a 12-foot wide sidewalk allowance, whichever is greater. We will recall that B4 was created to stimulate medium density, mixed use, pedestrian and transit-oriented development, of which a particularly wide sidewalk is a key element. The property in question this evening was previously zoned, Mr. Clicker, can you help me with this? B2, which I believe required a 25-foot front yard setback. Therefore, previously, the property was a legal existing non-conforming, but it is no longer the case. All right, as a result of what I felt to be rather loose variance request, minimum submittal requirements, this case was allowed to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals and then to this committee without full set or without really any architectural drawings several weeks ago. We sent Mr. Malone back to the ZBA once he had a set of architectural drawings in hand, and this case was subsequently sent back to us with, if I remember correctly, no recommendation by the ZBA. Mr. Clicker, confirmation on that one again? At the second ZBA hearing?
Yeah, the motion that I have on August 17th was it was a motion to basically affirm their decision before, which was to approve the variation with the option A1 that the petitioner had provided. That vote was a 4-2 vote with 1 abstention.
It was a 4-2?
Yes.
Okay, so that was a recommendation then. Okay. All right, and I think that's it for a history lesson. So, Mr. Malone, if you wouldn't mind, take the podium, and would you like to please maybe walk us through the plan and the function of the patio and how you're going to be using this?
Basically, I'm looking for a couple different things. I'm looking for to be able to put the patio out in front where I can keep an eye on it, because I'm planning on serving liquor out there, and I want to be able to control that. I'm looking for an area for a little bit of relief for the smokers that frequent my establishment, and outside is where you have to do that nowadays. The third thing I'm looking for is additional revenue in the summertime when I don't have as many leagues, and a patio could lend itself to that type of increase in business by people being out there and drinking and eating and that kind of stuff. So that's basically what it is. The physical dimensions of it, you have the plans there. I give it to you 2 ways. The first way is a decorative concrete patio with basically a 2-foot foundation wall in lieu of a guardrail, and then it has it's either going to be wrought iron or aluminum fencing around it with gates on either end. So there would be an awning. Part of that awning would be to protect some of the customers from rain and whatnot. In the winter, it would maybe have some walls to create a little bit of, so you're not going to have snowplow hitting somebody who goes out to have a cigarette, because the main use in the winter is probably going to be somebody going outside to smoke. It would feature a facade renovation on the brown brick parts of the bowling alley that are currently there. Those would be replaced with a brick similar to what's on the west side of the building. So the building would have two textures. Then it would be kind of a brick facade with that stone facade mixed in versus the brown 1950s brick that's been there for a long time and kind of doesn't fit the other stuff. So that would create a front view improvement and creates new revenue, and it solves a couple problems for me with the no smoking law. So that's what I'm looking for.
I
I
remember.
am adding a kitchen inside too. So
Say that one more
I
time.
am adding a kitchen inside.
You
too.
are adding a kitchen
I will
inside.
be submitting plans to do that, where the game room is now more like a snack bar than a restaurant kitchen, but it's going to have the ability to make some things like hamburgers and things that French fries, things I can't do now. So
Can you show us on the plan, I see it, but for anybody watching, the entrance to this patio is the upper right, correct?
the entrance is in through the bar area, which is
Right. And the
it's a
relation.
double set of doors there.
Okay, right. And the relationship of the future pending kitchen to that access would be about where?
That would be this area.
Okay. Okay,
There is a service door in that location right now where there's just kind of a metal door that's there. That's the actual room where the kitchen will end up being.
okay, I understand. I have some questions, some clarifications that I'd like. You said decorative stamped concrete. That's, the pavement would be concrete?
Correct.
Stamped to look like pavers?
Yes. No, not necessarily pavers.
or
I haven't
stamped to
really
look like some-
choose the texture yet, but it comes in. There's probably 1,000 different textures you could pick, but it's
It's stamped concrete.
it's
either way,
very
whatever the
decorative
texture is.
concrete. is
Whatever
what
the
ends up
texture,
being.
whatever the
Yeah,
color you choose,
right.
it's still a stamped concrete. Okay, a question that came up at the ZBA was about the, I think, 23 tables and 90 or so chairs, and if I remember at the time, your answer was this was kind of conceptual
It
to
is.
see
It is.
what
The
you could
seating is
fit.
definitely conceptual.
Okay, because I'm gonna take that conversation somewhere in a little bit, so that's why I wanted to know that that's more conceptual than
Yeah. There will
an
be
absolute
tables
design
out there, but
necessity.
there won't be
Of course.
23 tables out there.
Of course. You answered how the patio will be used. You already explained that the idea for the facade renovation on the western third is to try to do your best to match the eastern third to minimize your different materials that are already on the building. Can you tell us anything about the awnings? You know, these are, it's like a canvas awning, but it's going to be permanent, not roll
It
away?
has aluminum framing, and the only person I've talked to about it so far is Targent Signs, which is Steve Gruber in town, and it's a 10-year canvas awning, 10-year length. The material itself, now the aluminum frame, I would assume would last forever long, but basically reinforced with, there would be legs on the part that's sticking out the furthest. The other section is like a 4-foot awning that goes the rest of the building, just to kind of tie it in. If you look at the west side of my building, I have a shingled mansard thing coming down. It would be similar in size to that, so it would kind of even it out as far as how the top of the building looked.
So that mansard section of roof would stay, you would kind of.
Correct.
You would simulate
Start from
the
there.
angle and the style
Correct.
and pick it up with the, I suppose, self-supported cantilevered awning, no
Right.
supports necessary on that. And then you began to talk about the two support poles, that's part of the aluminum structure, those two poles that are all the way out to the
From what he
front?
told me, if I wanted to come out the 15 or 16 feet that it ends up being in that area to cover that part of the patio, you would have to have legs, otherwise it would kind of act like a kite if you didn't do that. So,
Okay.
so there are legs and it's attached to the ground. And then, like I said, in the winter, I planned on removable walls. I don't want them up there in the summer, but in the winter when the snowplow comes by, I would imagine they hit all the way to my building now, so it would just kind of keep that away from whoever was out there for, obviously, the open part of the patio wouldn't even be probably used then, but.
Okay. And a question that I don't know if your architect considered or if Ross may know the answer or might know how to get the answer. these coach lights that are in your proposed elevation on the fence, does anybody know if that's a glare threat by IDOT standards, considering their height and their proximity to the road?
I do not. We could definitely make that a condition of approval if it were to go that way.
Okay.
Those have not been chosen yet either.
Right.
As far as style goes.
So maybe there's something out there that's available that's not a glare problem, or maybe any light at that height, that close to the road might not be allowed, but that's a detail for later, I suppose. You talked about, trying to help your bottom line with increased revenue during the warm months. Activities that would occur out
would,
here, kind of along the lines of what, so we have an idea?
Do some probably beanbag toss type stuff. We talked about ping pong. There's a bunch of different things we can do outside that you can't do inside. We've had a couple of car shows this summer and the previous summer where we were outside and they did some bean toss just in the parking lot. And people seem to enjoy that. They do it at Crossroads. They do it at Thornwood, I believe, too. And that seems to be in lieu of horseshoes, because horseshoes are a little more dangerous when you start throwing them and people maybe drink a beer or two. So when you do the beanbag thing, it's a lot safer. And that's just that kind of stuff was what you do. We'd probably maybe put a TV out there in the summer so they could watch a game or, just enjoy the evening. Who knows? I don't know how far I'd go with it. I could imagine some other things I could do out there, like maybe you could do a karaoke night with a portable karaoke thing. Obviously, being outside, you'd have to watch what time you did it to and things like that. But I could see things like that being done out there, promotional items like that.
Yeah, I think it's just so everybody understands what it is that, you'd be doing up there. I'm going to call it quits for my first round of questions, open the floor up to anybody else that has any questions or comments, and then we'll come around and do it again. Alderman Lewiton.
Thank you, Alderman Gadala. Mr. Malone, for the records, I just want to read into here what we discussed last time that I was here from the previous minutes of the first time you were here of July the 23rd. Alderman Lewiton provided several reasons he would not vote for this request. First, the city passed B4 zoning law ordinances last year, and those ordinances do not include the business for which you are asking for an extension. He stated that that's me, stated that it says here tavern, but I meant bar, because a tavern does include some food, but a bar includes no food. Being run in the bowling alley is a sub-business, which is not allowable. An allowable business in the B4, and this business should not exist. Now, if I have a copy of the B4, which is ordinance 008-014 of March 6, 2008, and if you go through the list of all the allowable businesses, there is no tavern, there is no bar, there is restaurant. Now, I have been approached by another member of the council who pointed out to me that at the end of the list of all of these, there is an exception that allows you any lawful business and existing use in operation on the date of the adoption hereof in the B1 local retail business district, B2, which is what you're in, retail and limited service business district, and B3 service, automotive and wholesale business district, unless heretofore a permitted use under the preceding section shall be considered a legal, non-conforming special use under the B4 Town Center Business District rezoning ordinance, and shall be allowed by special use permit issued without further action by the City Council. So you have a platform to stand on. Having said that, I would really think that gives you an advantage in a few other businesses. If we're going to do this, I think the council should re-examine to put bar and tavern on the list so as not to show exclusionary position to Mr. Malone. Then, questions to Mr. Malone. There is section 10-22-504, which is outdoor eating cafes, which, since you're going to become one by putting in a kitchen and serving hot dogs, hamburgers, steaks, and other food items, you have section C, the use of outdoor eating cafes shall only be permitted incidental to the operation of a restaurant or on private contiguous property. So what you're saying is that you're asking for this permit in advance of becoming a restaurant, but you are stating you will become a restaurant. That's statement number one, which I'm going to ask you to answer. Then it says, D, if an outdoor eating cafe is in the city right-of-way, in no event shall the operation of the outdoor eating cafe reduce the open portion of public sidewalk to less than 5 feet clear of all obstructions, including city lights, benches, trees, trash receptacles, etc. I, the operation of the outdoor cafe is permitted between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. Obviously, that question is, will you close punctually at 11 at 11 p.m. or did you hope to have this open to midnight or 1 when you close the bowling alley and the bar? To what time is your liquor license? Is it at 11, 12, or 1? I don't know. I'm asking you. And then another one is the proprietor shall be required to provide additional outdoor trash receptacles for the cafe as required by the county health department. And in your illustration, I'm presuming you just overlooked it, or I overlooked it, but I didn't see any trash receptors. Your comment on that. Then the last one I'm going to ask you to comment is, all outdoor furnishings shall be designed to withstand a wind pressure of not less than 30 pounds per square foot. The property that you're going to buy, the tables, chairs, etc., have you had them tested, or have they been documented as 30 pound per square foot wind resistant? Now, would you like me to repeat those and you answer them one at a time? Or
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. Well, let's go backwards since I'm on that other page.
Okay, so you want to talk about the furniture first? Is that-
Furniture, have you
First
had
of all,
them?
I haven't even shopped for the furniture yet, but I did see that requirement, and obviously, if that's the requirement, that's what I'll have to pick. So I would assume that that would be met. I don't know how you verify that it can withstand that, but, I mean, obviously, that's what I'll have to shop for.
Okay. Going backwards, the proprietor shall be required to provide additional outdoor trash receptacles.
Yeah.
And my concept of a trash receptacle, since this is a smoking area, would also be cigarette trash machines, those where you, there's several different models, but you know, where you put the cigarette butt into a hole and it falls down into a cylinder and it captures it.
Well, as far as cigarette disposal, that's different than garbage disposal. I don't think architects necessarily put garbage cans in architectural drawings. Obviously, you need garbage cans for whatever kind of business you are to handle the capacity of the garbage that you're creating and to deal with it in a manner that's applicable with the health department. And we do that now on the inside, so there's no reason to think that I wouldn't be doing that on the outside. As far as the cigarette smoke, I mean, obviously what you would do, there's sections of that outdoor patio that you would not be able to smoke in because there's doors there. You have to be 15 feet from a door. That's what the law is, not an indoor smoking law. And there is no outdoor smoking law. The only stipulation is that you have to be 15 feet from either a vented window or a door or entranceway where any smoke can go in. So what you would use is in the sections that are non-smoking, I would assume you'd use ashtrays like you used when you used to smoke inside. And then you would dump those and maintain them just like you used to do with ashtrays. As far as ash stands like you're talking about, we already have them. I mean, right now we went from the $300 ones where you stick your cigarette into it, and when one of those got thrown out on Irving Park and the other one got stolen, we went to sand urns, and that's what we're currently using, because people just seem to be ignorant. They can't just leave something that's nice alone. So that's, rather than spend $300 every time somebody decides to chuck one onto Irving Park Road or decides to steal one because it would work good at their home, we found sand to be a little cheaper, and that's what we're currently using. But as far as the patio goes, I anticipate using ashtrays for that particular part of it. As far as garbage, I would do garbage very similar to what I do in the rest of my center. So.
Number I, the restriction is to 11 PM. What is your liquor license?
My liquor license is the 1 on weekdays and 2 on Friday and Saturday.
2 and 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock.
Right.
And what time do you intend to serve
I think you've
outdoors?
got two things there. Obviously, I'll have to follow the guidelines that you guys set, which is going to be 11 o'clock. But, I mean, I think you're in a safe, where it really shouldn't be too much of an issue where I'm located, only because if you go probably 300 feet on either side of me, I think the closest house you're going to find is probably 200 feet away, where even if there was any noise, which I'm not saying I'd be open past 11, but noise isn't really going to be an issue in this situation. I don't
Well,
think.
it's not a matter of noise, and I respect what you're saying.
Well, I think
But
that's
it's
why
immaterial.
the
The question is, will you close the outdoor patio
I'll
at
have
11
to.
PM according to city ordinance?
I close my bar now at 1 o'clock per city ordinance and 2 o'clock when I'm supposed to, so why wouldn't I do it if that's what the rule is?
Okay. C, an outdoor eating cafe in the city right-of-way shall shall the operation of the outdoor eating cafe reduce the open portion of the public sidewalk to less than 5 feet?
Now, here I'm not real clear. I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me better than I can. I'm here for a variance because I was told I needed it, but I can go out there and I can measure from the 5-foot sidewalk that's there now, and I can measure 12 feet toward the road, and there's still 2 feet left in every single spot along that parkway, or more. So I don't know if that means that I really need this variance, or if I don't, maybe somebody here could speak to that better than I could.
Okay, we'll go on
I'm
to,
not encroaching on the 5-foot sidewalk. I'm not even on the sidewalk. I'm up to the sidewalk.
up to the sidewalk.
So there's a 5-foot sidewalk minimum left, and there's still maybe the possibility of putting a 12-foot sidewalk there. I don't know for sure, because I don't know.
Let me interrupt this
How it reads.
conversation and give the microphone to Mr. Clicker, who I think has something to say on the subject.
In regards to the 12-foot sidewalk and the width of the right-of-way that is there along Irving Park Road, I did have conversations with both a consultant for the Illinois Department of Transportation and their Director of Planning Operations regarding this issue, asking them if a 12-foot sidewalk could be placed in the existing IDOT right-of-way. And their answer to me was, yes, it is a possibility. However, the sidewalk would have to meet IDOT design guidelines, which would mean no obstructions from light poles, anything along that.
And that is an issue.
Yeah. It would also have to have a logical beginning and a logical terminus. It could not be for one property. So questioning further on, and it would need to either be city initiative or part of an overall IDOT project. So in this case, what they pretty much said was if we wish to do the 12-foot sidewalk along Irving Park Road in the IDOT right-of-way, it would go from Grove Street to Wooddale Road. Inquired as to could this be made part of any future IDOT projects that the city is currently contemplating for the area. They said it most certainly could. However, those projects obviously are not shovel-ready, would be several years down the road. So the issue of whether or not the 12-foot sidewalk is possible, yes, it is. Is it likely in the near future? No.
But it's not likely if I don't do a project either, so.
Okay.
Actually, while we're still on the subject, let's finish the issue. So the one of the main issues is not only final IDOT approval, but the relocation of any of these utility structures
Correct.
in that sidewalk, which is a costly endeavor.
Correct.
There's two electrical poles in
Two
that
electrical
section.
poles. I think we've got a fire hydrant somewhere over there.
There's a fire hydrant.
Okay, I don't know. That may be
That section kind of could widen out a little bit because the patio isn't there.
okay. Alderman Shockey, and then Alderman Winger. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I may question Mr. Ross, please. I'm looking at the variation standards review, and I'm not sure if I understand. It says number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique. By the way, did you help Mike fill this out?
You know, before we get too far into this conversation, Alderman Shockey, is this about the side, is this going to go into the sidewalk question? Otherwise, I want
Yeah.
to finish sidewalk questions, finish Alderman Luton's questions, then I'll move on to you. So this is about sidewalk?
Well, yeah, it does overall, but go ahead.
Are you sure? You,
Yeah. Go ahead.
okay, sorry to do that to you. Alderman Winger, I think you do have a follow-up.
Thank you. So if the improvements were not made, so this proposal does not take place, then could the 12-foot sidewalk be put in with ease?
In the Irving Park Road right-of-way, no. If a 12-foot sidewalk were to be constructed without the patio out there, yes, it could be done, provided we would need to obtain either an easement or something along the front of Mr. Malone's property.
No, in other words, if you did it, it would be on my property.
And then we would need Mr. Malone's approval to do that. Is that correct?
Again, the regulations are, the way the B4 regulations are written is it's more of it's a future district, if you will. Typically, something along this nature would be a redevelopment of the property, a new building being constructed. At that time, it would be a negotiation with the developer as they go through. In this particular case, if a 12-foot sidewalk were desired to be placed and it was partially on Mr. Malone's property, yes, negotiations would have to take place with Mr. Malone to either grant an easement or allow that sidewalk along the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Luton, would you like to finish?
Okay, there's just 2 left. C, the use of outdoor eating cafe shall only be permitted incidental to the operation of a restaurant on private contiguous property. Well, I know the property you're talking about is contiguous, but the question is, when will you become an eating cafe as opposed to a drinking location?
I think the real question is, did you write the B4 ordinance really correctly? Because I get out of the B4 ordinance that you want to encourage this type of an outdoor activity, okay? And yeah, I'm putting a small kitchen in, and it's going to be simple sandwiches and stuff, but who cares who opens an outdoor eating cafe as long as it's what you're looking for and what you're trying to promote in this area, and that it is pedestrian friendly and all the things for commuter traffic and everything else that you want the B4 to be. Why is there a restriction on that it has to be an existing restaurant rather than somebody doing a new venture like I'm trying to do to improve my business and generate more sales tax and more income for me and more income for the town? Why is it written that way? That would be the question I'd give back to you to answer rather than for me to answer whether I'm going to be an outdoor eating cafe. I could do it either way. It's better for me to send a waitress out there and take an order from a customer and bring it back out to them than it is to have that customer come inside, pick up their stuff, and go outside, which seems to be the technical definition difference between a patio and an outdoor eating cafe. But I say to you, I almost think you guys wrote the ordinance wrong, and I hate to tell you that, but that's how I feel about it. I feel like I'm stuck in the middle on this thing, and I really shouldn't be.
Well, I'm going to have Mr. Clicker see what he can do to answer your question, but if you're unhappy with the B4, I'd be okay with rezoning that back to B2, and you'd be here for a variance to encroach in the front yard anyway. I think the B4 allows certain liberties and opportunities, although albeit with certain caveats, you got to give some and take some. But as far as, your concept that maybe we wrote it wrong, I mean, at least.
Well, I'm not saying the whole B4, John. I'm saying,
Yeah, well,
I'm
some
saying
pieces of
that particular section of the B4, maybe you weren't really thinking about what you want, or maybe you were, and I don't know what you were thinking.
Well,
You know,
I'll let
I don't
Ross
know. You
answer
guys
that.
define
But as
for
far
me.
as being stuck in the middle, I mean, I have you said it at the ZBA, and you kind of alluded it to again tonight, and I'm going to just be honest with you, Mike. We had public hearings on it, the 12-foot sidewalks and the encroachment of those sidewalks, the possibility of the encroachment of those sidewalks in the public property, which is really the main issue that we're discussing here tonight, was kind of always put out there in the public. And rezoning a property from B2 to B4, like I say, allows certain opportunities that it wouldn't have had otherwise. So if we had never created a B4, and if we or we had not rezoned your property before, and you still wanted to do this, you'd still be here for a variance. And I don't remember code well enough to know if the old code had any stipulations as to who can drink and eat outside versus who can't. And I'm not sure that's entirely a product of B4, but I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Clicker.
In the B4, the outdoor eating cafe regulations were written for the idea of a pedestrian-friendly, open, inviting environment. If there's not restaurant service with that, the feeling and the belief is, and this is not only the belief of those who drafted this was consulted with other communities who have these types of regulations, was that if it isn't a sit-down food service, if you permit it, especially in the public right-of-way. Now, perhaps I will agree with Mr. Malone with one aspect, in that the regulations maybe for an outdoor eating cafe should be limited to only if they are requesting use of the public sidewalk for the outdoor eating cafe. In this instance, Mr. Malone would be requesting for his patio to be all on his property with a permanent structure. So in that respect, I can maybe agree, as we're going through our UDO revision process, which we are right now, that we could examine this section and possibly make it these particular regulations apply to only the businesses that would request use of the public sidewalk with temporary structures. That is a possible change we could examine. However, as they're written right now, I again went back to the intent of what it was written for, questioning those communities who have similar regulations. And yes, although it may be, as Mr. Malone said, a technicality, the line that comes in is to permit an outdoor eating cafe. An outdoor eating cafe has table service. Because those that came back and responded to my question said, well, we wouldn't consider out in front of a sub-sandwich shop somebody who puts a table out there so that their customers can maybe sit down for 5 minutes while they eat a sandwich in an outdoor eating cafe. And I said, well, this is a little bit more. They said, but again, it's on his property, and I agree with that. If he's not asking for use of the public right-of-way, the ability to have a table outside is not, I think, subject to the outdoor eating cafe regulations, provided there is no table service.
Okay, so where this gets cloudy is the outdoor eating cafe happens on public right-of-way, and then B4 is designed such that public right-of-way may actually occur on private land.
Yeah.
All right, and that's in order to get the 12-foot sidewalk in. And once again, that allows you to build closer up to the front without any variance required. As it stands right now, if you wanted to come 8 feet out, you wouldn't even be here for a variance. We wouldn't even be discussing what exactly it is that you're doing there. It's because we've got the overlap of your private property and the newly designated public right-of-way that Mr. Clicker's right, and your question, be it very valid, is a good one. That it gets cloudy and difficult to understand. But I think he answered the question well. It's written such that we control how the public right-of-way is used and by who.
But what determines the public right-of-way in this situation? You need the 12-foot sidewalk, so technically you're saying maybe 3-4 foot of my property, you might need to do that because it's a cheaper way to make the 12-foot sidewalk than it would be to move the utility poles or whatever else the costly factor would be. So it's a cheaper way to make the 12-foot sidewalk to take my property than it is to move the phone poles, which probably should have been put underground a long time ago anyway.
Like we've been saying all along here tonight, it's give and take. You get
Yeah.
an extra 8 feet that you can build on without a variance, land that you couldn't use otherwise, and we get a more usable sidewalk to hopefully bring about more pedestrian traffic and more business. All right, I think Alderman Lewitton has one final follow-up Then we've got Alderman Shockey. I want to have finished his comment, then I'm going to go to Alderman Police.
Okay, yes, that's true. This is the final one of the recitation I gave earlier. It goes back to section 10.22502, permitted usage. And based on what Mr. Malone said, I know that he believes that the codes were not written to the greatest degree of clarity and fairness that could be achieved by the council. If that's the case, it's simply due to the council not always having the foresight to know what direction the wind is going to blow in the future. But the other question is, the question I asked you was that in the permitted usage, in the itemization of the usages, it allows restaurant, but it does not allow a tavern, which is small amounts of food with liquor, and a bar, which is liquor, predominant over nothing more than peanuts and crackers. And you are allowed in there by the section at the end of the recitation, which is 10.22.503, which are special usages, and one of that is then that basically lives up to the concept of a grandfathered business. So your liquor business, your tavern, or more accurately, your bar, that exists as a sub-business inside of the bowling alley is a non-authorized business use, but you are exempt because you were in business on March the 6th, 2008, when the law was passed. So my question is, do you feel that this law was fair and that it precluded competition from you, that it precludes other bars from existing in the same B4?
I don't think it favors me one way or the other. There's been probably 10 or 12 businesses along Irving Park Road that have been granted liquor licenses since 2008 that you're talking about. And you're talking about a business that's been here since 1948, guys. 1948, okay? That's when the bowling alley was built. And it's had a liquor license all that time. So I don't know what your question is, really.
The question is, in the B4, yes, there are liquor things down the aisle of Irving Park Road, but not all of Irving Park Road is B4. We're talking about the B4.
Okay.
What we're saying is that the law would prohibit somebody from buying a Firestone building and converting it into a bar. They couldn't do it because it is already in the B4 and the businesses there is not a bar now. So you couldn't put a bar there. So therefore, it's making unfair competition for a competitor of yours to be located next to you.
Where does the B4 section end? Does it end by,
There's a map on
Has-
here.
before
I would be
time
more
six or
than
after?
happy to show you.
Let's have
the
Mr.
map,
Let's
but I
have
don't
Mr.
think that's
Clicker
right.
answer that.
yeah, I mean, because I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer this question. but-
I want Mr. Clicker to, answer Mr. Malone's question and then to address Alderman Lewitton's concern.
Yes, Mr. Clicker, when you answer it, would you say that this should be reapproached by the council as to allowable businesses in the B4?
No. As the point of clarification, as you read, the paragraph which permitted Mike's business, or Mr. Malone's business, as a lawful and existing special use, the very next sentence or paragraph states that in the special uses, any proposed lawful business use which is allowed as a permitted or special use in the B1, B2, and B3 districts is allowable as a special use. So a bar or tavern, if they wanted to take over the very next door property, which is the Firestone dealership, and come in as a bar or tavern, they would need to apply for a special use, but it potentially is allowable. So there isn't a preclusion of that type of use, and it is a special use which they would have to apply for.
Well, thank you for the clarification. I don't think there's a man on this bench that understood that that was permissible, and we were looking at this as a strictly grandfathered. I appreciate Mr. Malone's truthful and honest answers to all of them, including his opinions. I basically feel we've reached a situation where there's really no right or wrong. And I give the floor back to the chairman.
Okay, Alderman Police, did you have a comment on anything that was just said or that it's timely to discuss it now? Okay, then Alderman Shockey, you're next.
Yeah, let me get back to the variation standards review, if I may. Number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances, and the proposed variation will not merely serve as a convenience to the petitioner. And the way it reads, it's saying that this has to be the only place, or is it everybody in that area? When it says some demonstrable and unusual hardship would result if the strict letter of the regulations of this chapter are carried out, and which particular hardship or practical difficulty is not applicable, generally applicable to other properties within the same zone. I'm trying to understand, when we're asking for unique circumstances, we're saying, does he have specific, unique differences from anything else in the B4 area that would prove this variation and is not just a convenience to the petitioner? That's the way we have our,
Yes.
I mean,
The
how
question
long
of
have we had
hardship-
this?
Yeah, the question of hardship is a very difficult question. It's vague for a purpose.
Well, I don't think it's that vague. I think it says for unique circumstances,
Right.
but not merely served as a convenience to the petitioner.
Correct.
So it's not
Looking at- yeah.
circumstances just for one person.
Looking at Mr. Malone's proposal, he could do an 8-foot patio off the front without any variations. Is an 8-foot patio usable? That gets debatable. Could he put it on the side of the property? Yes, he could. Would that affect other zoning regulations and building code regulations? Yes, it would. So whether or not he is completely unique, I can't say yes or no to that. Is his hardship caused by him? Again, that goes into the question of the Illinois laws that were enacted. That also goes into the acquisition of property that happened with the widening of Irving Park Road. Those are questions for you to ponder into making a determination whether or not you feel that hardship has been met.
So you're saying,
I know I'm not giving you a direct answer.
no,
on
you're
that,
not, and that's what I'm looking for is there a unique circumstance that does not merely serve as a convenience
What-
to the petitioner?
Mr. Malone.
Well, in regards to the one thing was the no smoking law was one of the things we wrote on there, but in regards to the frontage, in 1973, when we added on to that building, we gave the state and the city a 25-foot frontage. And they chose in 86, when they widened the road, to shorten that frontage, okay? So the requirement at the time was fulfilled as far as when we updated the building back then, we gave them that 25-foot. They had it. They had the parkway, they had everything.
What
And
year
then
was
when
that
they
built?
widened it, they added a whole nother lane,
What year was that?
1973.
When did you purchase the property?
The property's been there since 1948.
When did you
I
purchase?
became a partner in 1978. But it's a corporation, so really, I'm here on behalf of the corporation, which is kind of its own entity.
Okay, and the street was done in, what, about 86?
So they took a whole nother lane there on both sides. And that's why you can't fit your 12-foot sidewalk. I mean, not because of anything I've done. Technically, you could still fit your 12-foot sidewalk, but like I said, there's utility poles and things in the way that wouldn't make it all that practical for the whole 300-foot, because there's 2 utility poles, and like was mentioned, there is a fire hydrant, although I'm not sure that becomes really in play, because it's not where the patio is.
Russ, another question I have is, under the B4, are there any parking space restrictions?
Meaning parking requirements as to what?
Yes.
Yeah, the standard parking requirements that we have in the zoning code under section. Bear with me for one moment, please. (102705) schedule of parking requirements is still applicable. That, the B4 district did not change those regulations.
So that stays the same.
Correct.
So, and he has how many parking spaces now?
I don't know offhand, but
Yeah,
it's over 100, I know that.
I'll be honest, I did not count how many spaces.
Or how many he needs, do you know that?
I was told I need 6 for every,
For every lane.
wasn't 6, I think John told me 6 for every lane. So that would be around 100 for the 24 lanes, be 96.
It's 3 parking spaces shall be provided for each alley, plus additional spaces as may be required for the bar, the restaurant, and the like.
Yeah. I think my number was 6.
So you've got how many lanes?
24 lanes.
24, so you got by 3, 12, 72. You would need 72 plus
Plus for the bar.
the number of,
Plus the bar,
the number of stools around the bar, or sitting areas around the bar.
which I think is
So
another
I think
40.
if you have over 100 spaces, you still do have room to put it on the side. Because somebody told me you couldn't do it on the side because you wouldn't have enough parking spaces. But evidently you would. If you
I don't
took up, let's say, 4 or 5 parking spaces to build a room out there.
Well, the size that we're
Still
talking
would
about in
be-
the front, it's more than 4